Marcus Farrell just says he thinks Florida State is underrated again. Now, is Florida State underrated? We'll discuss that right now. Make sure you subscribe to the On3 YouTube channel. Quick plug right now. If you're watching live, you probably hate when we do this, but we cut these as one-off clips, so we appreciate y'all being patient with us. But if you're watching on a one-off clip, this is from a live show. Okay, we do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. We're on podcast, The Hard Count with J.D. Piquel, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you're locked in. We don't want y'all to miss any of it, okay? This is kind of the time of the year where we're starting to peek over that hill and see college football on the other side. Don't wait till later to get dialed in. Be dialed in now. Stay ready. Don't have to get ready. Is Florida State underrated? Let's see what Vegas says. They put their win total for the year at over under 9.5 wins. Okay, so if you're a Florida State fan, you're saying, well, we went undefeated last year. Yeah, okay, over under 9.5. If you win 10 games, you're probably in the ACC title game. I don't think that's disrespectful for the most part. They have the best odds per FanDuel to win the ACC, and they have plus 154 odds to make the college football playoff. So not necessarily the best odds in the world to make the college football playoff, but plus 154 feels like those are, you got to feel pretty good about Florida State making the college football playoff if you're putting down that number in Vegas. So I don't know that I believe Florida State is being underrated, but I do think when you take a step back and you look at social media in the college football sphere, there is a little bit of this feeling, I think, if you're a Florida State fan, that maybe, just maybe, the Noles aren't being given all the respect in the world that maybe they deserve coming off of an undefeated season and winning the ACC. So if you're a Florida State fan, you're like, hey, what gives? We're the big dogs in the state. I mean, we're trusting the climb right now. You kidding me right now? You're going to talk some smack on Florida State after what we just did last year, after what Mike Norvell has proven he does in the portal? I hear you, but we got to understand now where the other viewpoint is coming from. Because if you're not a Florida State fan, or you're just a college football fan, period, the flyover take is, well, Florida State last year, a lot of those key pieces that made that undefeated season happen, they're no longer there. Jordan Travis, heart and soul of that team, he's gone to the league. Keon Coleman, one of the most dynamic offensive weapons in all of college football, gone to the league. 2 defensive linemen to the NFL, and Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. They got a lot of pieces now they're having to replenish and replace. Florida State is 83rd in the country in returning production. So, by all accounts, it's a fairly new team in Tallahassee. So again, the question is, a lot of new pieces, how do they fit? A lot of new transfers, how does it translate? And so that take, I think, in a vacuum makes sense. Usually when there's new pieces, especially when there are new pieces that are transferring in from another school, it's fair to have some hesitancy. But I think when we look at Mike Norvell, what he does works in the portal. And I'm not in the know enough into what goes on in that building. Like, I'm not sitting in the office with Mike Norvell watching tape and picking out who we want to have as our targets for the transfer portal. But it's very clear that the way that they approach the portal gets results. From evals to where to look, to how they utilize them in the offense, to how they acclimate them to the team, period. Like, all these things that Mike Norvell has in place, it works. And so when we have questions about guys transferring in, I think it's really fair for us to remember all the guys that have come to Florida State and flourished. Jared Verse was at Albany. Not saying Jared Verse wouldn't have been Jared Verse if he went somewhere else in a power conference, but the fact that he came to Florida State and got after it right away, like, you got to give some credit to Mike Norvell. Braden Fisk was playing in the MAC. Dude was tearing up Wednesday nights. Like, that was his deal. That was his stage. Comes to Tallahassee, now he's an NFL player. Keon Coleman, he was a dog in the Big Ten, came to Florida State, and I think made even more noise. So we have to understand now, we need to probably treat Mike Norvell with the portal a little bit differently than you would treat the average head coach in the portal. I'm not saying he's 100%, but he doesn't miss nearly as often as I would say maybe other coaches do. And that's not throwing shade at other coaches. If anything, it's trying to give Mike Norvell his flowers. There's this conversation around who's the portal king, Lane Kiffin or Mike Norvell. Can make an argument for both, but the fact that's even a label that you're talking about with Mike Norvell, we need to probably treat him a little bit differently. Because you look at the transfers and you look at this roster on paper, the feeling in Tallahassee is, yeah, we lost a lot, but internally they feel like they have the best team, top to bottom, from a talent level that Mike Norvell has had since becoming the head coach at Florida State. That's saying something based on all the guys you lost last year. But you look at what they have from that spring game, and it's hard to argue. Patrick Payton, we know what he is. Marvin Jones Jr., transferring from Georgia, former 5-star. Just because you weren't the guy at Georgia doesn't mean you can't play ball. In fact, you have to feel pretty confident if you're a Florida State fan that he's going to translate pretty quickly to that defense based on how he looked in the spring game. Darrell Jackson, excitement around him. Josh Farmer, excitement around him. Malik Benson has to be huge for them this year. You feel really good about what you heard out of the spring from what he's done over there at the wide receiver position for them in Tallahassee. Backfield is legitimately 3 players deep, if you ask me. Roydell Williams, you feel really excited about him at Florida State. So all these pieces on the paper, plus the benefit of the doubt with Mike Norvell, it's like, why can't Florida State go win the ACC? Why can't they go make a run at a college football playoff berth and maybe if they get in the dance, make something happen? And the key response you're getting back to that is, well, DJU, people remember what he did at Clemson or what he didn't do at Clemson. People remember the expectations for him. He's in Dr. Pepper commercials. He's supposed to be the guy, supposed to be the next one after Trevor Lawrence, and then he doesn't translate how you would hope he translate. And so I understand that. But I think what I just said a second ago has to also apply to DJU. If transfers come to Florida State and then have their best season of their career or give their career new life, why is DJ Uiagalelei the exception to that? And to be real here, like DJU doesn't necessarily have to leap tall buildings and lift cars to do what Jordan Travis did for this offense. And that's not me taking a shot at Jordan Travis. Again, he's the heart and soul of that team. You do not make the college football playoff. I'll rephrase that. You do not put yourself in position to be undefeated to make the college football playoff without Jordan Travis and what he did during the season. Just statistically, let's look at what he did. His best season, he threw for 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, right around 3,100 yards, and ran for 7 touchdowns. That was his best season at Florida State statistically. That was in 2022. In 2023, feel pretty confident in saying he would have surpassed those numbers or been pretty darn close to if he plays a full season, but that's what the numbers say. DJU's best season was 21 touchdowns, 7 picks. Okay, so 2 more picks, 3 less touchdowns, had 1 less rushing touchdown with 6, and threw for 2,600 yards. So the biggest disparity there is just 500 less passing yards. Like all the other numbers are really fairly comparable when you look at those. So DJU, does he have to go out and win the Heisman Trophy for Florida State to win the ACC? I don't think so. I don't think that's what you need to win the ACC at all. I think if you're DJU, you just have to learn the system, get acclimated to everything around you, which is pretty obvious. Mike Norvell majors in allowing his transfers to do that, and then be able to get it to your playmakers and not give the ball to the other team, which sounds super simplistic, but I keep going back to this thought. We all want to judge DJU from what he didn't do at Clemson, totally disregarding the fact that maybe, just maybe, he has his best play caller of his career in Mike Norvell. He has the best roster on either side of the football around him as a whole, or at least as good. Why can't he go have his best season? Why can't he elevate Florida State? I don't see the logic behind that. So all things considered, I think Florida State and DJU are maybe a little bit underrated from the college football public. Vegas thinks they're going to win the ACC. More power to them. We'll give you our ACC predictions when we get closer to the season here, probably early August, maybe late July, depending on how we feel about that. But Florida State, man, they're going to be a problem once again. A lot of new pieces. There's no way around that. But if we know Mike Norvell and new pieces, usually those new pieces fit pretty comfortable and acclimate pretty quickly. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.